Hi. Rarely is my introduction funnier than me. Thanks. I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. I want to thank everyone involved in inviting me here. I've never had dinner at a country club before. I feel a little like Rodney Dangerfield. So if the golf course blows up later, I'm sorry. What's also very surprising to me on a daily basis is that I'm actually an author. Because I really wasn't supposed to be one. And there were lots of people who told me that. I was born in Akron, Ohio, which at one time was the rubber capital of the world. It is now the empty rubber factory capital of the world. Not too many exciting things ever happened there. We invented the zipper. Yes, that was a big day. My father was a route salesman for Wonder Bread. Yes, so we had a lot of healthy white bread growing up. We were also a Hostess cupcake test family. Yes. My father's Wonder Bread owned Hostess, so whenever they had a new Twinkie or a cupcake, I had to eat it and fill out a report about it. And then, much later, the company was bought by the Stouffer's company. So we had a house full of white bread, Twinkies, and French bread pizzas. Somehow I managed to avoid juvenile diabetes. My mother was a stay-at-home mom, and there wasn't a lot of money. Both of my parents are high school dropouts. But they managed to carve out a halfway decent life for us in Akron. One thing I will say, they never had a lot of money in the checkbook, but they always had a little bit of money for books. I remember a specific time when I was maybe 7, they handed out this thing called the Scholastic Book Catalog, which was like 4 or 5 pages back then. Now it's about the size of a phone book. And I caught my father, I think when he was asleep, and I said, "Dad, can I order a book?" And he said, "Order whatever you want. Just go away." So I ordered them all. I remember some of them: the Charlie Brown Encyclopedia, so many of those books, and I remember them coming in 4 giant boxes that I had to carry home one at a time. And to my father's credit, even though we didn't have a lot of money, he let me keep them. And that was an important thing for me. And that was the beginning of a really exciting adventure into reading, which came to a screeching halt when I was 8. And a teacher gave me a book called The Yearling. Now, I know The Yearling is a successful and classic story, and many of you probably love it. I hated it. It's a story of a boy who has a pet deer, and for an 8-year-old boy, I was waiting for the deer to turn into a robot or shoot lasers or something other than being a deer. And I was surrounded by really well-meaning people who would give me these books, and sadly it sort of killed my interest in reading. We read Little House on the Prairie, lovely, lovely stories. Not for an 8-year-old boy. And I became what they call now a reluctant reader. At the time, it was called being a pain in the ass. But back then, now it's called being a reluctant reader. And I really just didn't feel that I was being given anything. And I started to think that maybe books were kind of dull, and they might get duller as I got older. Luckily, and why it's so amazing for me to be here to help the library is that it was a librarian who turned that around. I was in the 4th grade, and I had never been in our school's library. And the librarian noticed, and she cornered me in the hallway like a cougar. And she grabbed my sleeve and pulled me into the library, and she said, "Mr. Buckley, you are going to check out a book today." And she pulled me down through the aisle and grabbed a book off the shelf, and she shoved it into my hand, and she said, "You're going to tell me everything you can about that book in a week." And I looked at it, and it was called The Mouse and the Motorcycle by Beverly Cleary. And hopefully everybody here has read The Mouse and the Motorcycle. If you haven't, you're really missing out. I took that book home, and I read it, and I read it, and I read it, and I read it. And I hate to say this, but I never took the book back. I owe my elementary school $75,000 in late fees. But it was an eye-opening revolution for me. To say that there's a moment in your life when you know what you're going to do, and to have it when you're 9 is really an understatement. That really was like a lightning bolt to me. And I thought that if there was a book like that in the library, there might be another book like that in the library. And luckily that librarian was patient enough to help me find them. And it had everything that I wanted. It was funny, it was full of adventure, and most importantly, it was completely pointless. Which is super important to a 9-year-old boy. And at that moment, I thought that perhaps maybe I could write for kids who couldn't find a book in the library. And I'll tell you a little bit about how I got to do it.